Now heard on iTunes.
Everything you want to hear from the voice of Cerritos College, WPMD on the net, where people make a difference.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Falcon Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob JF, and the semester is winding down pretty fast. At this time, I would like my guests to please introduce themselves.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me on the show. My name is Debbie Chen, and I'm the licensed marriage and family therapist that works here at the Student Health Wellness Center.
Hi, I'm also so happy to be here. My name is Alma Renteria. I am a school board member for Lynwood Unified School Board.
Excellent. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I like to invite also, individuals who, they've already gone through their education and so forth, and, to help inspire people who may be also, pursuing the same thing that you guys have already, achieved to, the positions that you're already currently in, and, get their story. And I'd like to start off, by having you tell us about what was college like for you? Did you know right away what you wanted to do, what you wanted to major in? Tell us your story.
Well, for me, you always go in, well, not always, but I did go into college thinking I knew what I wanted to do. And throughout your college career, you learn some things don't fit quite as well as you thought it would. So definitely my college experience has been a lot of changes, a lot of trying to figure out new plans and adjusting to new plans because, you are trying to learn about yourself at this time. And it's going to be challenging, and it's also going to be very exciting to figure out what you actually do like and what you don't like. So, did I know exactly where I was going to end up? No. But I am very fortunate and blessed to have had some direction and also support in figuring out what it is that I really wanted to do, and then to follow my heart and follow my passion, and to have landed in the field of mental health. And college was definitely the time to figure it out.
I think I would agree with everything you just said. For me, I went in already knowing that I wanted to do something that involved giving back to my community. I was always very involved with Lynwood, so leaving to college was more of an experience of finding out what was going to be the best way for me to get back. So I decided to be strategic about it and chose a major that I knew would apply to anything, so that at least I knew I wouldn't go wrong there, which is why I did English major. Initially, I definitely wanted to do law, but I think it's a given thing sometimes that you grow up thinking doctor or lawyer, and that's about it. Your options are very narrow. But while I was in college, I think that one of the things you mentioned was like learning about yourself. I learned how passionate I was about education, and I made an emphasis on not only majoring in English, but gaining some experience in the realm of education. So I ended up founding my own organization that actually focused on tutoring. And I think that's where my whole emphasis on education really stems from. But I knew that I was lost for most of the time there. But I definitely did at least gravitate towards, let me stay on the same track, let me do English. And I know that it takes a good writer to do anything, so I can be really good at something at least.
And you guys' degrees are what, like MA, BA, what are they again?
Well, to become a licensed marriage and family therapist, it is a master's program. So you would need to get your bachelor's and then go into your master's. There are doctoral programs as well if you want to go into psychology. So it is a higher education and graduate school work that's involved.
So for me, I'm a teacher by trade, so that's what I do. So I got my BA, and I also have my teaching credentials, and I'm halfway through my master's program. I now am a project manager for a nonprofit, so part of it is getting a master's degree in preferably nonprofit business management.
Excellent. And I was also wondering, when you guys were in college, did you partake in clubs, student government?
I did. I participated in quite a few organizations on campus. That was also a way of building up your support network and, discovering different interests. When I went in, I didn't know what kind of field I wanted to go into, and it was working with people. And so in working with people, there's so many different avenues to take on. So a lot of the organizations on campus and on college campuses allows you to explore kind of how you want to find that interest and what is really going to be your niche.
I think for me, I definitely was very involved in college. I graduated as a third year, so I feel like I did everything very quickly. So I didn't feel like I found the right organization for me my first year there or my second year. So I did try out a bunch of different orgs, but that's when I decided, well, if there's nothing that fits, then I have to create something, which is why I actually gathered a supportive group of friends, and we founded our own organization that kind of just tailored to what we wanted it to really stand for. And that was definitely one of the best experiences in college because, like she said, it did allow me to kind of connect in a different way, and it taught me what I really wanted to do. So it was a great experience.
Excellent. And we're going to continue after these public service announcements.
Nothing better demonstrates an artist's ability to perform, to connect with his audience, than his work on stage. At the WPMD Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we bring you Roadwork. A series of great concerts, start to finish, uninterrupted, from the greatest names in rock and roll. All from the WPMD archives. Some haven't aired in years, some have never aired at all. And you have the best seat in the house, right in front of your speakers. Roadwork. Throughout the week, on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, on WPMD on the Net, where people make a difference.
If you have an addiction or a mental health issue, you are not alone. With the support of others, you can find your path to recovery from mental and or substance use. Help yourself or someone you love take the first step towards recovery. For more information or treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP or visit www.recoverymonth.gov. A public service announcement from WPMD.
Today on Save on Taxes. We ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
A car seat.
No! Erica, what do you think costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File?
A pair of shoes.
Wrong again. The correct answer is nothing costs less than filing your federal taxes with IRS Free File because it's absolutely free. That's right. With IRS Free File, you get brand-named software, online tax prep, and e-filing for free. The software helps you pick the right forms, find tax credits, and does the math for you. Free File even helps with the new healthcare provisions, and it's all for free.
So, did we win anything?
Everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
And we are back here in the Falcon Spotlight, located at Cerritos College, which is in Norwalk, California. And I'm back here with my guests. And I was wondering, so tell me now about the duties. Well, before that, also, like, touching up still on the whole, education and so forth. I know that sometimes it could be a struggle sometimes when books are expensive and so forth. Tell me about the jobs that you held before you got to where you are now.
Wow. I held a lot of jobs. It's a balancing act because, all of us going to college, some of us will have some support from family, some of us are really on our own, and it's really just making it work. The various jobs that I've held have been in restaurant work, have been in I worked at offices as an admin. retail, all sorts of things that could balance the busy school schedules. I think once more I knew exactly kind of more aligned with what field I wanted to go into. I found a job that was in the mental health field upon graduation that I wanted to take a time to really dive myself into to make sure that it was something I wanted to commit to. So even, knowing what degree you want to graduate with and then putting your degree to use, sometimes it's not always going to be an exact fit. So it's best to always have that experience. So go into the field, work in the field that you want to go into, because that way you'll really learn and know what you're going to be in and what kind of environment you're actually going to be in. So that's what I did upon graduation, and then that was something from that point on. I've been in the mental health field since. So
I think I would share the same experience as you did. During college, I didn't have too many jobs. I was very focused on trying to finish early, so that was almost like my way of making it an incentive. Like, the sooner I get out of here, the less money I'll spend. So I decided to take a couple more loans, and I focused just on school. And then over the summer, I would do summer school and I did side tutoring jobs. It's always very basic tutoring. And then as soon as I graduated, I had the opportunity to work for Upward Bound as a resident advisor. And then from there, I moved on to doing City Year, a nonprofit. So I did do everything in a way that I knew would lead up to some kind of opportunity where I could gain more community service experience, but more based on education. So after City Year, I actually ended up with Teach for America. And I think everything that's come from there all has been led from having focused a lot on just getting my things done while in college and seeking opportunities that were in the field so that I knew what I was getting myself into before I signed a contract. I didn't want to hate my job. So I think that going in there, I knew exactly what it was like to be a teacher just because I had already put myself in those opportunities before.
Excellent. Now, tell me about the duties and responsibilities of the current roles that you hold.
Well, as a therapist, my role is to provide, a safe space for the clients that come in, as well as, maintain a level of care that our profession upholds. To go into, I guess, when you ask about duties and responsibilities, there's so much that I'm not quite sure how to encompass it all. But the general idea is the well-being of the client. That would be my concern. So as long as all my duties and responsibility is to ensure that the well-being of my client, the safety of my client, all within the capacity and the scope of my practice, that would be the overall duty and responsibility as a therapist.
So I think for me, I have multiple roles. I think my two most important roles definitely are, so I used to be a teacher. I am now, I moved into the nonprofit sector. So I am now a project manager for Be a Leader Foundation, which is a college readiness program. So my job entitles a lot of different aspects. I play both the role of the college advisor for students, so that's my direct service, but I also do the business aspect of the foundation in terms of expansion and seeking partners and creating kind of a collaboration hub to ensure that our students receive different opportunities that can be internships, scholarships, and whatnot. So I become that access point for our students. On the other side, so that's my day job. My other side role is I'm also a school board member for Lynwood Unified. So my duties and responsibilities there are basically we as a board work together to kind of guide how we want the school district to kind of go towards. So our direct access point is the superintendent. So let's say I have a vision that I want to make ethnic studies a high school requirement. So those are kind of policies that we get to work on, and then we go to the superintendent, kind of throw out our vision. This is what we would like to see. He meets with cabinet, and then that's kind of how it all follows through. So our responsibility entitles to just make sure that every student receives the best education possible. Might that be through the resources that we're providing, the teacher quality that we're providing, after school programs. I think it entitles a big part of everything. Our schools are the biggest priority that we have. So there are a lot of elements to being a school board member.
And how does one become one?
You get elected. So there are other school boards that I know can be by appointment. We are an at-large election, so every 2 years there is an election. There's 5 of us on the board, so every 2 years there's going to be some open seats. For example, this year it's an election year for us, so there's 3 of them that are up for re-election. So it's an election process, and as it sounds, like you go out and you canvass and you get people to believe in what you have to offer for the community.
And you also have like a president and stuff
Yes,
like that. How
we
does
do.
that get selected?
So the way we do it is based more on rotation. So we have more of a rotation model where all 5 of us have the same input, but every year we rotate in terms of our president. So the way we usually tend to do it is every year it's a different one so that we can rotate the responsibilities, because usually the president will be almost like the spokesperson for the board. However, there are other board members that take on different responsibilities and duties within that board as well. So we just try to rotate them as often as we can, so every year if possible. Sometimes the president will stay there for 2 years just because they just did an excellent job, and it's almost like a unanimous vote, but usually it is a 1-year rotation.
And how often do you guys meet?
We meet, we have our formal meetings twice a month, so every other Tuesday. We have a meeting tonight, actually. And we also meet with the superintendent as often as we like. So I try to do it at least once a week if I can, just to get updated on whatever it is on the that's going to come out on the agenda, just so that when we go out there, we are making informed decisions on exactly what we're voting on.
Excellent. Now, as for the health center here, how does typically how does the student go about making an appointment and stuff like that? Or is there a limit to how many times they could see a therapist?
Well, for the overall student health wellness center, as students currently enrolled, you guys have full access to the services that they offer there. So besides the mental health services, you can see a nurse practitioner. They can treat you for, if you're having a sickness or you're not quite sure what's going on or you're not feeling well, you're more than welcome to come in, and they can at least evaluate you and guide you to the next steps to help yourselves. There's There's chiropractic services that they offer there as well. And there's even a dietitian that's there to help, anyone who's concerned about their diet or wants to change a lifestyle in their eating habits. So those are all additional services that you can call and schedule an appointment. If you're not feeling well and you're on campus, you are more than welcome to just walk right in without even an appointment and see someone. So it's really accessible and available to all the students here. As far as the mental health service, that is by appointment. You can walk in, and if there's an availability with one of the counselors, because I am there as well as another therapist, my colleague. So we are there Monday through Thursday, and so you can schedule appointments, and or if you want, you can walk in, and if there is an available appointment, you can be seen. And if for whatever reason there is more immediate attention that you would want, you can definitely even see the nurse practitioner first, and they can guide you and help you, and then schedule the next available appointment with the counselor.
And there's no limit to how many sessions, or?
Well, what the school does recognize as mental health services, it is what they consider an acute episodic treatment, which basically is brief therapy. So the students are allotted a limitation of 4 to 6 sessions max per semester, and the sessions do run about 30 to 35 minutes, which is shorter than outside services, which sessions usually it's about 50 minutes as compared to the 30.
Now, I know that, we had that workshop about depression and suicide. And depression is everywhere. And, we would like our audience to know that, it exists everywhere. It can also, be as early as, from K-12 and on.
Sure.
So if you guys would like to, talk about that as well.
Well, like you're saying, depression is everywhere. Depression is a human emotion that we all experience, and really it's how it influences and may interfere with an individual's life that really makes the difference. So, even kids can experience a depression, and it may appear very differently than maybe even an adult might present. And so it is something to take seriously if it is noticed.
I think depression is one of those things that, sadly, at least in the Latino community, one thing that I've noticed is that it's often not accepted.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost a state of being, as if it's a controlled emotion. And I think that over time, the more aware I've become of different just mental health issues, I've realized that there isn't enough awareness about it. I remember growing up, I had a friend that was always sad. But for me, it was one of those things where it's like, how could you be sad? You just have to be happy. I didn't realize that that she had no control over it. And it wasn't until later on in life when I realized, like, that was a clear sign of depression. But I didn't understand it. And I know that when I mentioned it to adults, it was almost like, oh, she'll get over it. But I think that that's where it is so important for more people to realize that it is an issue, but it's also something that needs to be treated. And I'm a big supporter of therapy. I think that it's necessary for anyone and everyone. I think in education itself, that was the one field that in the classroom specifically, you deal with so much that I used to always tell my teacher friends, like, you need to go see a therapist, because sometimes being around so much of our students' depression was contagious, and it is an emotional state of being, and if it's not treated, it can just have so many more consequences that can be so easily avoided. And I think that that's why it's such a hot topic always. But at least in our community, I have noticed that it is still very taboo. Like, oh, you're not depressed, you can get over it. But it's not something that it can just be that easily ignored.
There is a lot of, similar beliefs about how it's just get over it. It's, there's nothing to be depressed about. Mm-hmm. You should be happy. You have all these things. And once again, depression is a natural human emotion that we all have. And some of us may experience it differently. And so it is very treatable. And there are ways to learn how to manage within yourself and what surrounds you that's going to work best for you to help you through that depression. So awareness and education is very helpful, I think, to counter all the taboo and the myths that's going on about mental health. And, I have to concur with what you're saying about how depression, as much as it is an emotional state, it is treatable, and there are professional help. And sometimes with the kids especially, or even just adolescents and different phases, even adult life, you're going to have chemical imbalances. Mm-hmm. And that can be the attributing factor to depression. And it's not so much that it's just emotion. So there's other variables that can create and reinforce depressive feelings that may make it very difficult to cope with and handle. So medications can be very helpful. Medications combined with psychotherapy, because then you can learn the skills to better manage the emotions and learn what can help you in those times.
Another interesting thing that I had noticed also was that I didn't know there were such conditions as I know that some people can be like introverts and they like to keep to themselves and stuff, but that there's I don't know what's the name of it, or I forget, where people are like afraid to be social or something like that.
Well, it sounds like you're referring to maybe some social anxiety that mm-hmm. could be identified as also social phobia. I'm not too much of a proponent of labeling things, because it may, when you label things, it may make it seem worse than actually what it is. I think that each individual have different personalities. Some of us are going to be more outgoing. And some of us may not be, and some of us may be more shy, and it's simply a personality trait. It's really how those experiences in the social situations and knowing yourself, those experiences, how it influences you, is going to really determine how you perceive and experience that situation. So, social anxiety does exist, and there's also treatment on that, and there are ways of overcoming so you can help yourself be more comfortable or know how to manage that anxiety when you're in social settings.
And I think that would go along for anxiety in itself.
Yeah.
Anxiety is something that can be stemmed from a social atmosphere that it's just not comfortable with, or different kind of stresses that just create that feeling of anxiety. But I think that that's another one of those mental health issues that definitely can be treated. There's so much medication for that, and there's just different ways. For people that are not very fond of taking medication, there's just aromatherapy. There's just so many things out there to help those feelings of anxiety. But I know one thing that I remember hearing, I don't remember who told me, was that sometimes we forget that our body just takes on so much that once in a while it just has like a little mini breakdown, and that's what an anxiety attack really is. And it's so hard to accept it because it doesn't make you weak. It just means that sometimes your body's just taking too much. And that's a moment of a breakdown. And sometimes it happens in the social atmosphere where it almost makes you believe, like, so it's a form of social anxiety, when really there's just so many factors playing into what just happened.
And so, like I said, I don't like to label it. So, and you're right, anxiety is part of life.
Yeah.
It's interesting how some of the science and medicine always tells you to avoid stress. Well, you can't really avoid stress. Stress is part of life. And so it's really how we handle and learn to manage the stresses that we encounter, identifying what it is that you can do, because those are the stressors, and how you can help yourself and how you can manage it, versus the situationals that you have no control of. And so with anxiety, once again, it's very treatable, and there are medications, and once again, not everyone's a proponent of medications, and that is okay. Mm-hmm. There's other science and techniques that have been proven to work for anxiety and for depression and various other, conditions that are related to mental health. And so, there are tried and true research that's out there that have proven the success of the treatment plans.
No, I also noticed that at one point there was also, or sometimes there's like, I think there was a flyer about group therapy. How, like, what would be the difference between the group therapy and the individual therapy?
Well, group therapy, there are flyers out for group therapy that we're holding at the Student Health Center. Group therapy is more where there's more than one member, so that's the main difference between individual and group. Also, it's where you get to hear some of the other people's experiences as well, and sometimes hearing similar experiences and the similar emotions that are felt and the things that people go through that kind of may align with what you're going through or what you have gone through, can lead to some understanding and a sense that you're not alone. So group therapy can benefit in that respect, because sometimes, we might feel really alone and isolated from what we're going through and think that no one's really understanding, and that may not really be the case. What is similar, with group therapy as well, confidentiality is also maintained. So, as a therapist, confidentiality is very important, and we don't take that lightly. So anyone who participates in any aspect of group or therapy, whether it be individual or group, we do uphold the confidentiality, and we try to ensure that to create a safe environment, whether in an individual or group setting.
I think group counseling in general, I know we never went to like an official group therapy, but group counseling for us in the same field, I do recommend it. I know that sometimes it is easy to feel like you're the only one going through everything at the same time. And when you do partake in a group counseling session, it's almost like it's one of those feelings where you feel less alone. Like your stresses are not something out of this world. And it almost makes it easier to deal with and cope with because it's that sense of support that somebody else is also going through a challenge and it's okay. And I do always encourage it, especially for, I mean, as a teacher, we all used to just go to those together because it was just hard to cope with some of the realities in the classroom. And it was hard not to take home with you some of the stories that you would hear. But I think that's where group counseling does come in. It's a opportunity to just kind of share what's going on. It's all confidential, so you don't feel like you're betraying a student's trust. But it's also a moment to feel like there's a support system out there, and you don't have to deal with it alone.
And also, I know that another thing sometimes that can get to students is, trying to balance things when they're trying to take on too much. What recommendations do you have as far as time management?
I think even as adults, you're going to struggle with time management sometimes. And so it's, as a student, it is particularly hard. You're trying to work on school and all your schoolwork. You have all these different professors and different classes that's demanding of you, not to mention if you work outside and you're holding multiple jobs and your family. Prioritizing is very key in time management. Figuring out what is in the more immediate, setting those immediate short-term goals can help you then work through those goals so you can reach your long-term goals. Identifying those can be helpful in time management because once you know kind of how you want to lay out your path, that's going to help you determine how much time it's going to take and really then, divvy up the time that you have available and your own schedule because there's all these other variables that you have to try to fit in. If we only have so many hours in a day that we can function.
I think too, obviously balancing is just a key factor in reaching your goals, but when I think of time, I always think of me. Like there's a me in there for a reason. And I always think about how if I do want to reach everything and make everything happen, I can't afford to wear myself down. So I remember in college, I used to always be a part of too many things at once. And there were times where I was just so tired that I would get sick. And I feel like it took me a while to make that connection. And that's where I realized, well, is it worth it to do so much at once and then get sick for a week? So you just have a week that you wasted. So it was almost like backfiring on me. So that's where I started creating my own schedule. And I'm very big on agendas, and I know not everyone's big on them, but sometimes planning out really allows you to know exactly how much time you have for yourself. So I used to incentivize almost my weeks. Like I'm going to get this and this and this done. And every Saturday morning or Sunday morning, I would just get my agenda or my planner or wherever I had everything, spend 2 hours, had some coffee, and plan everything out for the next week. And then I would take the rest of the day for myself. Because if you don't make yourself a priority, everything else will seem very unimportant. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes we forget, to make ourselves the biggest priority in all of your priorities. Because at the end of the day, everything you're doing is almost like in the pursuit of happiness, right? You're pursuing happiness for yourself. But if you're not making yourself a priority in all of that, then no matter how hard you work to get an A in all of your classes, it's not going to feel as great at the end if you kind of let go of yourself. So I am a very firm believer of being selfish for yourself.
Well, you bring up a good point, and it's self-care. Yeah. It's caring for yourself, because if you don't do it, who will? Yeah. And part of, just fitting it into time management and life and dealing with all the stresses is really making that time and space for you, even when it seems like you don't have the time. But you do, because you have control of what you want to do and what you choose to do. And it's a matter of deciding, what's important, maybe in the more immediate, and what are some things that maybe can wait.
We'll be right back after these public service announcements.
Nobody knows more about the fascinating beginnings of rock and roll than Steve Probst does. The small labels, storefront studios, unknown artists, writers, and producers that wound up starting the most dynamic, innovative, energetic music the world has ever heard. Steve tells that story every night at 10 Pacific on WPMD with the best of the Steve Probst 45 show. Classic sides, both well-remembered and virtually unknown, and in-studio conversations with virtually everyone who made them. Plus, Steve's own encyclopedic knowledge about the subject make it a must-listen for anyone who wants to know where the music they listen to now came from. It's the best of the Steve Probst 45 show every night at 10 Pacific on WPMD on the net, where people make a difference.
WPMD can help you save money. Next time you want to shop online, go to our website first, WPMDonthenet.com. Click on the Amazon.com button. They'll take you to Amazon.com, where you'll take advantage of all the great deals that you can find there. WPMD and Cerritos College Foundation will receive a percentage of what you spend, and it won't cost you anything extra. It's a great way to support the place where people make a difference, and to find out the best deals on the net. Thanks for being a smart shopper, and help out the voice of Cerritos College, WPMD, where people make a difference.
Today, my new dad threw a barbecue.
Today, my new son and I threw a barbecue.
There were burgers and chicken.
I burnt everything. The burgers, the chicken, the salad.
They were delicious.
They were awful.
And then we had watermelon.
I'm allergic to watermelon.
And then we played catch.
I broke Mr. Lewis's window, Mrs. Wakeham's window, Mrs. Wakeham's windshield. And then, somehow, my hand. My hand!
And then my dad even let me drive his car.
The hospital's on the right! It was a rough day.
It was a great day.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
And we are back on the Falcon Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob JF, and we are here in Norwalk, California, Cerritos College, WPMD Studios, where people make a difference. Now, I am back here with my guests, and, the time just goes by so fast, but one of the questions that, it's like the question usually I ask all my guests before, I try to squeeze in this question. What was your goal this year?
My goal this year?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my goal this year, coming to work at Cerritos, was to provide the services that maybe some of the students don't have access to outside of campus. My goal was to be available and to create, once again, a safe space so they know that they have a resource if they choose to come in. And to use my expertise and knowledge to help them the best way that I can.
So I think for me, I'm a bucket list kind of girl. So every year I have my multiple goals and whatnot. But this is the first year that I actually only had 2. So it was to take risks and seek a new challenge. And I purposely did it very broad because I felt like every year I was being very focused on specific goals that I was limiting my own potential. And this year was one of those years where I literally started with that. Like, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to seek new challenges. And somehow, literally within the first 2 weeks of the school year, I got offered this new position. And I ended up leaving the classroom and going into the nonprofit world, which is a complete switch. But it always reminds me back to, like, oh, God, like, I actually did do it. Like, I took the risk and I left, and this is a completely new challenge. So it's been exciting to kind of think about it now and look back and say, like, I'm definitely going to have much broader goals from now on.
Now, another thing that, everybody faces also is a no. Like, you'll go and apply to something and you'll feel discouraged
Sure.
because you didn't get the job or something happened. Tell me, give us, some suggestions, how to cope with rejections also.
Rejection's hard. I think it's natural to feel disappointed. I mean, you work hard for something and you really desire something, and it's disappointing to not get it. But I also believe that things happen for a reason, and that opportunities, when one opportunity does close, another one, it only provides room for another one to open. So that's kind of what keeps me going through, or keep going on and pursuing, because once again, if that route is not going to work out, then let me try to see what other avenues I can take. And so it's continue to look for those opportunities, knowing that rejection is part of life. And yes, it's disappointing, but at the same time, that's momentarily, because you can always work and strive for something else that can bring joy and happiness, and we don't have to be stuck in that disappointment.
I think I like to surround myself by people that know how to take rejections, simply because, and I laugh about that just because I remember at the beginning, even applying to college, like getting rejected, I thought it was the end of the world, and how dare them reject me? I am so worth it, and I deserve that spot. And after going through college, I remember going to applying to my first job and getting it, and it was almost like a humbling process, because from having received so many rejections, it felt so much better to get a yes. And after my first job, I remember actually applying to continue with that job, but as a team leader, and I got a no. And I thought it was the end of the world. I got a yes at other programs, but in that moment, I was so focused on that one rejection. And like she just mentioned, I think it took me realizing that it was another door, and that rejections just really make you tougher, because it allows you to realize that you can't have it all sometimes, but you really can. You make the best of what you have, and it really does allow you to feel like you have it all, because sometimes it's easy to focus on that want, and not getting that want doesn't make you recognize that maybe that's just not what you need right now, and there are other doors out there for a reason. And to this day, I feel like those rejections were what have me where I am today. And I couldn't be happier to have been rejected, because now I take so many more risks because I'm not afraid of the no. And before, I definitely limited myself. Like, I don't know if I can take a no. I don't think I'm going to apply for that, because if I get a no, it doesn't feel good. But it's a part of life. I think that's part of, even when you fail, it's necessary so that you can appreciate when you do succeed.
Excellent. And the other question I have is, what would you give of advice to someone who is wanting to pursue the field that you majored in, that you got your degrees in, or the roles that you currently have?
Know that it's a process, and it is hard work, and that it does take patience. And it may try you at times and make you doubt yourself and question whether or not you're really in this for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to know what your passion and what really brings you happiness, and where you want to see yourself be, and not to lose sight of that. So know that whatever you do pursue, whether it be in similar fields that we're in, or whatever passion you hold for yourself, it's knowing that it's a process, and to give yourself that room for adjustments and flexibility, because sometimes things may not turn out how we plan it.
Definitely. And I think, at least for my field, in terms of education and teaching and whatnot, I would say volunteer, get some experience before you go in there. I think it's the beauty behind being a teacher is that if you're in it for the students, it'll be a great experience, but you need to come in already knowing that it won't be easy. It's not going to be this magical, you walk into a class and suddenly everyone gets everything. So it does involve a lot of patience. So I do recommend anyone that's looking into being teachers to please volunteer. There's so many schools that are always taking volunteers. Go in there and really get a taste of it so that you can go in there for all the right reasons. In terms of politics, I would say get involved. Community service is so often underrated. It should not just be a way of, oh, let me boost up my resume. It should be an opportunity for you to really give back to the community. That's what it's supposed to be about. And it will truly develop your leadership skills. And if that is the route that you want to go, I would say get involved with your local government first, because it's easy to say, I want to run for Senate and I want to be a part of the assembly, and with great power comes great responsibility. So I do recommend that if you are looking into any kind of political position, get involved at the local level, serve your community, take as many leadership roles as you can, and really learn and develop yourself and realize that you're never going to stop learning and you're never going to know enough. So.
And I know that, volunteer work is definitely, admirable as well. And, sometimes some people, they have families that, certain family members that they're too old school, especially, I guess, probably in, like, the Hispanic side, like, where they think, school, I know, well, like, my side of the family, we have, like, a grumpy uncle, and he'll be like, oh, come on. Like, when I was a kid, I went to school, and my dad took me out of my dad took me out of school, and like I had to work on a ranch. So just do work, and they'll be like, oh well, just get a paid job, even if it's just McDonald's. Why are you wasting your time with volunteering? When you have like someone who's like being that little fly that's like trying to be discouraging, what words do you have for people that like have like a friend or a family member that's being negative around you?
Well, I say come to therapy, because that's something we can work through. But in all seriousness, we all have those outside influences that may contradict or may not go with what you want to do, the individual wants to do, or how the individual sees himself being, or the professional career that they want to go into. And so really in the end, it's up to that individual to decide on how much and how little, if any, of an influence of that voice, of that outside influence. Because in the end, even though we're all uniquely individuals, we coexist in a world with other people. And so we are going to be influenced. And so it's really knowing what you want and caring for yourself and listening to yourself, kind of along the lines with what we were talking about, time management and making that time for you. That's where it comes in, because regardless of all the influences that's out there, ultimately the decisions that you make is for you, and you're the one that's going to have to live with it. So all those outside voices, family, friends, professors, anywhere that's coming from, in the end, you're the one that can have the choice to decide on to take their suggestions or their recommendations or not. Because you're the one that has to live with it. So it's really it's really more important that you're going to be okay with it, and you can accept it, and you can live with it, and that let be the determining factor.
And if it makes it easier, I go by my own personal rule of, is this choice that I'm about to make a sort of personal investment? And if it's not, then I probably shouldn't make it. Like, simple as that. And I think that allows me to kind of sometimes avoid some of the negative opinions that people might share when it's unwanted. But sometimes those opinions are a reflection of what is really going on, and it's important to listen. But that's why every choice you're going to make, does this service, is this going to help you in the long run? Then it is a personal investment. Or is you going on this trip that you can't afford right now, and you're going to get an F in your test on Monday? Is it really worth it? No, it's not. So you probably should listen to that negative feedback, because they're trying to tell you the truth. So I think that just having that personal choice of realizing every choice you make is an investment or it's not, and you get to determine that. So
Excellent. I want to thank you both for taking the time to be here on the Falcon Spotlight. This concludes this edition of Falcon Spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you listening right now, remember, tune in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. to the Falcon Spotlight here on WPMD, where people make a difference. Until next time, folks.